What's good, people? Flo back at you with another video. Today I'm going to be discussing the mechanics for heroic Sire Denathrius and the upcoming raid Castle Nathria. This is shaping out to be a super fun encounter and epic final boss. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show any content past phase 1 since we never faced him, but I will showcase phase 1 and discuss the mechanics for the other phases. The damage check was pretty tight with our small group, but enough of that, let's get into it. Boss is going to do some RP for you actually pull him. Use this time accordingly to set up groups for your main mechanic of phase 1, which is going to be Burden of Sin. Ideally, you're going to want to split the raid into halves. Burden of Sin is going to be immediately applied to everyone in your raid as soon as the encounter starts, inflicting damage per stack. Only way to get rid of a stack is to get hit by a frontal he does called Cleansing Pain. As tanks, we were facing the frontal towards the wall so people knew where to go for the soak, and the other group would be chilling on the side of the boss. After he does this, ads will spawn that you need to kill because they will do constant raid damage that can ramp up pretty quickly. The more people hit by the frontal means more ads. The ads cannot be CC'd, so no use trying to mass grip or anything like that. We found the best way to deal with this is by tanking him towards the edge of the room so you can have the ads basically bounce off the wall in a nice clump. Unfortunately, it was pretty random and sometimes they could be a little bit more spread out than we intended, but it seemed to work out for the most part. And if they aren't killed within a certain time, they will go back to the player that spawned the ad and reapply your burn stack you lost from the frontal. This is going to be important for the next ability that we're going to be talking about. Blood Price is going to toss everyone up into the air, rendering you unable to do anything and explode for damage corresponding to whoever has the same amount of Burden of Sin stacks as you. It is imperative you don't miss the frontal he does so you don't throw off your Burden of Sin stacks. Last thing you want is for everyone in your entire raid to take more damage because you missed a soak. It hurts the healers and can lead to some very costly deaths as it's just a huge amount of damage going out at one time. Essentially, you want to have your first group soak the first two frontals that he does so that your burn stacks are staggered enough between the other group so that they never overlap with each other. Again, this is going to make ads a huge priority as not killing them fast enough can overlap stacks and can lead to huge damage that's going up while you're tossed up into the air. As tanks, we were swapping after the second frontal. His next ability, Night Hunter, is going to summon images of himself that mark targets they're going to attack. These ads aren't targetable, but you can see the path for their target. It's just a red line that you're going to want to soak to reduce damage. You do not want to soak the impact, only the path, as Denathrius will heal for that amount from the impact. The impact zone is just basically a red circle around the person. If he heals from you also being an impact, it could make it more challenging for your group to meet the damage check of phase 1. You're also not going to be reducing the damage by being in the circle. I think I did that a few times because I thought it was the same as soaking the path, but I'm actually just griefing my raid by doing so because I'm not reducing the damage and I'm basically just healing the boss. For this mechanic, you want to cross the paths as best you can in an X-shaped fashion and assign people to soak a particular path. We marked the people being targeted and told which groups to soak what. In hindsight, it didn't seem to be too practical because sometimes the person marked could be on the opposite side and you wouldn't be fast enough to reach the path, but by crossing the paths, you essentially have less ground to cover. This can also happen when the ads spawn, so it can be easy to lose track of what you need to soak. You do not want to soak two paths, as the first path you soak will mark you with a debuff, increasing the damage you take from the same ability by 500%, so double soaking is basically going to be death. His last ability for phase 1 is going to be called Command Ravage. Upon reaching 100 energy, his sword is going to do massive damage in an arc depending upon where your raid is. Arc looks like a pizza slice and takes up 1/3 of the room. This is the enrage timer for phase 1 because after the third cast of this ability, you will no longer have any room left to work with. We used a Warlock Gate to get to the other side quickly. That's pretty much phase 1. Again, I don't have any footage after phase 1 due to the limited testing, but I can briefly go over the next phases and cover those more in depth when the time comes. After he hits 70% HP, he's going to knock you towards the edge of the room where you're going to need to sprint to the center to not die. Then you're going to fall through the floor to the next stage, which is epic by the way. Here, Denathrius' sword is going to become active and one of the tanks will need to tank it. The sword is going to share HP with Denathrius. There will also be ads on the edge of the room that do constant raid damage for each ad up. When they die, they're going to release a volley of anima, which is basically just red swirlies that you need to dodge. In this phase, Denathrius will do a frontal you don't want to soak since it increases the damage you take. So basically, you're kind of flipping it from phase 1. So soak in phase 1 and don't soak in phase 2. It looks like this can affect the ads as well, so you probably want to face them in the direction of an ad so they die quicker. Not entirely sure if this is true though, just going based off what the dungeon journal says. Denathrius is going to summon an image of himself that does AoE damage. The further away from it, the less damage you take, so think of Inquisitor Zanesh. His sword is going to slash the entire room when Denathrius hits 100 energy with projected paths of each slash that you need to constantly dodge. And there's going to be a lot of them, so look out for it. Occasionally, this sword is also going to mark players, and you don't want to be in the path of the person that they marked. And for the last phase, he is going to wield his sword and do big damn. It looks like the last phase is going to be a combination of mechanics from phase 1 and 2, so just be sure to continue looking out for those repeat mechanics. For instance, he's going to continue to summon the images that do AoE damage. He's also going to do an arc-like ability that is pretty similar to phase 1, where it's going to be zone denial. And he's also going to summon other images that slash like his sword in phase 2. The way I'm imagining how this fight's going to turn out by the end of it is that you're going to have very limited space to work with, and you're going to have to do a huge dance to avoid a bunch of his abilities. It definitely sounds like it's going to be a huge adrenaline rush by the end, especially on Mythic. I'm not going to go too much more in depth for this since I'd like to cover more of this when I have more footage, but just want to give a rough oversight of the fight from first testing. Plus, there's a lot going on here, and I don't want to overload you guys with information that I don't even have any footage for. Don't worry though, I'm going to make a future guide for this encounter. The fight looks pretty epic, and I can't wait till it hits live and we get to see how it all pans out. Let me know your thoughts on this fight, and be sure to hit that like button if you did in fact like the video. But until next time, dudes, peace.